And welcome back to Pokemon Team Creation Series. Today's Pokemon team suggestion comes to us from user. One second. User SP9UI. Basically, it was before I realized I could just click and find the actual person's name. I was still writing down the user names for whatever. I don't know why YouTube changed that. Regardless, yeah, you suggested Keenan from Digimon Data Squad. Digimon Data Squad was basically the Digimon series I kind of left off on it because I didn't even really finish Data Squad. I watched a lot of it, but I didn't finish it all. I do remember Keenan though, and I remember that his partner was Falcomon and the Digivolution line that went for that. I remember he kind of had honestly he has a bit of a Kangaskhan Kid vibe from Pokemon, but he was a child left to spend for himself in the digital world, not on purpose, but due to an accident with his family. And so I decided with Digimon characters, at least non-Digimon characters, with Digimon, that's a different type of video. Let's make a Pokemon team for a Digimon themselves. I could do that, but let's work on what we're doing with right now. I decided, at least in part, like when I did Tai, I was really trying to encapsulate as much of Tai as I could. But when you really break it down, except for a couple identifying factors that sets them apart from each other, most Digidestined don't have a great deal of character or nuance to them. So you got to focus more on their Digimon partner. Now, before we begin on that, I will go into a little bit of, his actual, because he's raised kind of as a wild child, I knew I needed some Digimon to represent the fact that he's a good fighter to some degree, and the fact he was kind of, left to fend for himself. And so, in that regard, I started off with, well, I actually ended off with Hawlucha for that. Fighting type, flying type, works well because it kind of represents the balance of the team a little bit. As well as Primate, because Primate is definitely the kind of Pokemon you'd imagine some kid living in the jungle could have. And it would make sense. So now that we got those guys out of the way, and he had a bit of an attitude. Let's not mince words. So with that said, now we go into his Digimon partner, which was Falcomon, into Peckmon, into Yatagaraman, into Ravemon. All basically bird-based. Falcomon was an odd one to start with, because Falcomon, in terms of all Digimon, are roughly speaking in rookie form, like around the height of a small child, give or take. And once you get the champion to ultimate to mega, all the other forms can be varying in size, but rookies are almost always in a consistent state of size. Some are bigger than others. I know when what was it, Ghost whatever, there's like a really big one, taller than like an average man, kind of big. But yeah, most rookies are pretty big compared to Pokemon. Plus, Pokemon is kind of like a humanoid bird with a big round head. So I'm like, okay, there's not much that really fits to T, but I decided to go with Rufflet. Big head, standard bird, I think at least for a rookie. And there's also not really much in the way of a falcon-based Pokemon. Hold on that real quick before anyone starts to comment on that. There is not one. I'm not saying there isn't one. I'm saying there's not much in the way of a falcon-based Pokemon. So then there's Peckmon, who is basically more of like a emu ostrich style bird, roadrunner style bird. And in that regard, I did consider using Galarian Zapdos. But for champ, I did want to try to keep like the level of power somewhat consistent, like rookie to champion to ultimate to mega. So I didn't want to go Zapdos because I felt it was just too strong to represent the champion. But what I did decide to go with is one that's based off of Roadrunner, is Doduo, or Dodrio in this case. Dodrio being at the moment, fully evolved Pokemon. It doesn't actually have a very high base stat total now that I think about it. What is Dodrio's base stat total? 1 second here. I want to say it's like 4 something or other. Dodrios aren't, by the way, in terms of I keep saying Dodrio is not all that bad to use. I've never been a Dodrio fan myself. It's a fun gimmick, but that's one of those Pokemon back in the day where I'm just like, there's other things for me to use. So let's see. Its base stat total, roughly speaking, is... Oh, we're almost there. Oh, God, I'm yawning again. Pardon me. I'm only now... My body's now... It's been a week later. My body's now only just starting to adapt to the time change. All right. So its base stat total is a lovely 470. Actually, that's a pretty solid base stat total, all things considered. For a non-legendary, non-pseudo, non-starter Pokemon, if you can get to like 450, you've got a solid base stat total, to be sure. So yeah, I mean, it's got a good base stat total. Champion honestly makes a lot of sense for me, in my opinion, anyway. So yeah, I felt that was a good representation for think words for Pekmon. Then you get into Yatagaraman, which is based off the Yatagarasu, obviously. It's basically got 3 legs, and it's more or less a crow. But the only crows we really have are, I mean, to be fair, technically speaking, Corvisquire is based off a raven or a crow. I actually could have gone Corvisquire. I could have. And I'm thinking more on that right now. I might consider swapping out the place when I did put there for Corvisquire. But, because Talonflame is technically based more on a falcon than a hawk, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's based off like a hawk or a falcon. But because it is a bit more bird of prey-ish, which is what Falcomon, at least initially, is supposed to be based off on, I went with Talonflame, which is stronger than Dodrio by about 29 points. It's got a base stat total of 499, which is a good base stat total, honestly. Like I said, anything over 450 once you get into those ranges are, at least from a base stat total perspective, a solid Pokemon to have on your team. That being said, again, we live in a meta world where literally you can beat a level 100 Arceus, as I heard it described yesterday in a video, with a level 1 Rattata if you know how to do it right. So there's that. That being said, and especially seeing as Corvisquire, Corviknight has a Gigantamax form that honestly looks very similar to Yatagaraman. I will say that this Mon, and it's only slightly weaker, like only 4 points weaker than Talonflame. I will say that Gigantamax, Corviknight, or Talonflame could be interchanged here. I'll say that. But last but not least, we get to the Mega, who is Ravemon. Now, Megas, not always, but a lot of time tend to lean towards a humanoid form and design. Ravemon is no exception. It is basically a humanoid bird person with large black wings and I believe a blade next to it. So, humanoid flying Pokemon, not the easiest to find, but if we're dealing with something that is the Mega, which is the most powerful version of a Pokemon except for Ultras and Super Ultras, then I went with Tornadus, the standard flying type legend, not standard flying type legend, but a single flying type legendary Pokemon. I think that just works out fine. Being the strongest one on his team is Mega, it is Ace. I think that works fine. Like I said, though, I would possibly switch. I'm being perfectly okay with swapping out Talonflame with Corvisquire, but that's just my opinion. The question, as always, is how balanced is this team? And the correct answer to that is not balanced at all, because every weakness that Flying has, Ice, Electric, Rock, which I believe are the main weaknesses of Flying, if I remember correctly. I don't think Flying has any other weaknesses. Give me 1 second here. I'm double checking on that real quick. The reason is I always, in my head, I always think that Psychic is also weak to, Flying is weak to Psychic, and it's not. But yeah, Rock, Electric, and and Ice. Except for Talonflame, who's at least neutral to Ice. The vast majority of this team, and the Hawlucha would be neutral to Ice, I'm pretty sure. Although, let me double check Fighting and what if Fighting is neutral to damage against that. Because Fighting is strong against Ice. But I don't recall if it's neutral in terms of the damage it takes. And no, actually, damage taken is neutral. So, yeah, because it's neutral then, it's still weak to Ice, unfortunately for Hawlucha. Now, fire, though, resists ice, if I'm not mistaken. So, and now that being said, it is resistant to rock. So the rock is going to be, it will resist the rock. But, yeah. So, Hawlucha is resistant to the rock. Talonflame is resistant to the ice. Everyone else is getting cleaved by any of those types, except for Primeape, who is, ironically, weak to Psychic, weak to Flying, weak to Fairy, and that's another one. Fairy's going to be a problem for Hawlucha. So, yeah, unfortunately, the main weaknesses for Flying are going to cleave through his team, because Primeape's not even fully evolved. Unfortunately. It used to be, now it's not, which means you could put an Eviolite on there and go to town, but unfortunately not. But yeah, because he's just so bird-focused, like because Falcomon is a bird-based Digimon, it just makes sense, in my opinion, to go with this in terms of his Digimon team. But this is just, as always, my opinion. What do you think the Digimon team for Keenan from Digimon Data Squad is? Let me know in the comments below. But thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you folks next time.